Calling the meeting of the Gloucester City Council for Tuesday, August 28th to order. The first order of business is a flag salute and a moment of silence, so if you'll please stand. Councilor Cox, will you lead us, please? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and we'd like to dedicate our moment of silence tonight to George Belizos, who passed away over the weekend. George was a long-time and great Gloucester resident, a deputy fire chief, and one of our very honored World War II veterans. So in George's honor, we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. So we'll take a couple of things out of order. The first thing we'll take out of order, we'll do the confirmation of new appointments first. Councilor O'Hara, could you...
Yes, thank you. We have one motion, a recommendation on a motion by Councilor O'Hara, seconded by Councilor Nolan. The Ordinance Administration Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council appoint Michelle H. Harrison to the Zoning Board of Appeals, term ending February 14, 2021, and I so move. Ms. Harrison is a was a well-known attorney, still practices, I believe, somewhat, and is always available for questions and answers. She's well known to the community as a lawyer who has practiced in the city for over 30 years representing clients before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Her experience will be invaluable as a member of the board. Michelle, if you'd like to acknowledge your presence.
You stand and wave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much for agreeing to serve. So, motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, and congratulations. So, next order of business, well, first a couple of announcements. We have on our docket tonight for City Council vote our civility resolution. Because Councilor Nolan and Councilor LeBlanc are not here tonight, we will postpone the vote on the civility resolution until our next meeting on September 11th. Next item is oral communications, and as I will read our standard opening, but tonight we also have a presentation from the administration on the issue of public roads and private roads and the care and maintenance thereof and how private roads are accepted and so forth. If there is anyone here who has a question about that, we will hold those questions till after the presentation. We will not entertain them during oral communications. We will listen to questions from the audience on public and private roads after the administration has made their presentation. So with that said, next item is oral communications. The public shall have the opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, state their problem without debate, and the matter shall be referred to the proper agency through the office of the mayor. The resident will be notified within a 2-week period relative to the disposition of same, and a copy shall be forwarded to the City Council. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each, and the City Council President shall not allow complaints as to individual performance. So with all that being said, is there anyone tonight who wishes to speak under oral communications? Okay. And we'll move on. Madam Clerk, the next order. Oh, sorry.
I just have one question.
Yes.
Are the questions that are going to be asked during the presentation going to be addressed as oral communications and will receive a response from the mayor within 2 weeks? Or how are we going to address those questions?
Yes, we will take those questions under advisement. And if it seems pertinent to get an answer tonight, we will. Otherwise, we'll have to refer them to the office of the mayor.
I just have somebody in the audience that has a concern over a private road, was going to speak at oral communications, but now with your instructions.
Well,
but I
perhaps
feel like
perhaps the
those
concern in
response-
question will be answered by the presentation. That is my hope. So we'll see about that.
Okay, thank you.
So I may have a question when they address the public and private roads later, but I would like to make a request from the city to get a copy of the state revenue report back to the city for public and private roads. I know there's one every year. Every city in the state gets it.
Thank you. That pertains to what we're going to say. That could be addressed in the presentation.
Okay.
So if you please wait until the presentation has been given, and councilors will have questions. And then if there are questions after that, we'll entertain those questions.
Okay.
Okay.
The
So,
next-
go ahead.
Are you going to do it, or am I going to do it?
You do it.
Presentation by the General Counsel and Director of Public Works regarding private and public roads.
Thank you and welcome to Mr. Payson and Mr. Hale, and we appreciate your appearing before us to give us a tutorial on private roads and public roads. And I will just say to you and to the two people in the audience, I have this is not a public hearing. This is a presentation for our information, for the information of city councilors. I've also asked the councilors in the last couple of weeks if they had constituents who had questions to please get those questions so councilors can ask those questions. Once we're all done with that, we'll see if there are any questions that have been unanswered, and we'll stick to questions. This is an information session. So with that, Chip, welcome, and go ahead. Floor is
Thank you,
yours.
Mr. President, members of the City Council. A number of you obviously have sent questions to DPW Director Mike Hale and I. Some have been emailed in. We'll try to answer those. I think our goal is to try to answer those in our presentations. While there's quite a lot of them, we'll try to do as best we can tonight. And if we miss any or anything like that, you can ask them when we're done, or we can come back at another point in the future. So for the purposes of tonight's conversation, I'll be covering several topics. And Mike's going to talk about some other issues as well once I'm finished. The first thing I'm going to talk quickly about is the three kinds of public roads that the three types of ways that exist in Massachusetts and in Gloucester. Number two is the maintenance and liability responsibilities of those ways. Number three is how private ways become public ways. And in conclusion, I'll touch on our repair private ways ordinance. So let me begin by briefly talking about the three kinds of ways that exist here in Massachusetts and in Gloucester. I'll do the two that are the easiest first. The first type of way is the public way. The public has a right to pass and repass over all public ways. Municipalities, in this case the City of Gloucester, are responsible for the costs associated with the repair and upkeep of those public ways. Private individuals generally may not make major repairs to a public way without prior authorization from the municipality. They may, however, petition the municipality to have inadequate public ways upgraded, and the municipality may contract with the abutters to do so. This is in response to a question Councilor Hecht had. The second type of way is the true private way. I'm not going to say too much about this because typically, I think for all intents and purposes, these are non-issues. True private ways are ways that are wholly the subject of private ownership and private use, and the public has no right to pass and repass over them. The type of way that I believe that we're really here to talk about is the third one, which is the statutory private way. Statutory private ways are those ways that are privately owned, usually by the abutters along the way, but the public has the right to pass and repass over them. These are the ways that cause the most problems, so I'd like to spend a minute or two talking about them. The Supreme Judicial Court has noted in a case as far back as 1866 that the origin of some of these private ways may be so ancient as to be unknown. In other words, Many of these roads predate the founding of this country and the incorporation of this city. Originally, they were likely particular ways that were necessary for access to the lands of certain persons or properties. They were also likely laid out by the municipality or its predecessor, but paid for by the persons or properties who benefited from them. As a matter of course, the public used them, but the owners along those ways maintained the ownership rights in the land. To that end, Massachusetts law provides a legal presumption that the ownership of abutters in private ways, statutory private ways, runs to the center line of the way and carries with it the right to use the way along its entire length. These ancient roads referred to by the SJC are the statutory private ways of today. They were never subsumed by the city when it was incorporated and remain private in ownership but public in use. As such, there are constitutional and legal restrictions on what a municipality can and cannot do with them. The Supreme Judicial Court has firmly stated that, and I quote, "It is a fundamental principle conforming to constitutional requirements and frequently declared that money raised by taxation can be used only for public purposes and not for the advantage of private individuals." In other words, public funds cannot be used for private purposes. This includes the repair of private ways. The Massachusetts legislature, however, has provided municipalities in statute with the ability to appropriate money to plow and make minor repairs, such as filling potholes, to statutory private ways only if these ways are open to the public. In terms of liability, the abutting owners are liable for such defects or lack of repairs on statutory ways that may exist. A quick word on private ways becoming public. In order for a private way to become public, the city must follow certain steps laid out in statute. The city council, in Gloucester's case, must, among other things, take an affirmative vote to take the private way and make it public. The procedural hurdle of affirmative acceptance is there for a reason. Essentially, a taking of a private road by a municipality is an eminent domain action. Given that, there are several misconceptions when it comes to the taking of a private way by a municipality, and these are misconceptions. First, the city does not designate private ways as public. The procedure is statutorily substantive in nature, and it must be adhered to. Second, there's no grandfathering of private ways into making them public ways. The city must follow the statutory procedure in order to take a private way. Third, allowing the public to use a statutory private way does not make it public. Fourth, a municipality providing minor repairs or snow removal to a statutory private way does not make it public. And finally, landowners cannot force a municipality to take a private way and make it a public way. So to reiterate, the taking of a private way by a municipality has its legal underpinnings in eminent domain. And as such, the City Council must, among other things, take an affirmative vote to take the private way and make it a public way. So absent that, you don't have a public way. So setting the procedure aside, there are specific reasons why a municipality would want to go slow in taking private ways. As the courts have said, if any way could be made public solely by the acts of landowners, with no accompanying act by public authorities, the municipality would be responsible for the maintenance and repair of countless ways. In other words, assuming the care and control of numerous ways can have significant budget implications. And taking them all at once or in a short period of time could very well bankrupt a municipality. So to reiterate, there's three types of ways in Gloucester. Public ways, the city maintains them. The public has the right to pass and repass over them. True private ways, the abutters maintain them and the public has no right to pass and repass over them. And statutory private ways, the abutters maintain them and the public has the right to pass and repass over them, and the city may plow or make minor repairs to them by statute. Having said all that, municipalities may, under law, establish an ordinance by which they may better a statutory private way, as long as it is open to the public and benefits the public, and the abutters or private owners then repay the costs of that betterment. Accordingly, Gloucester has an ordinance laying out the process by which the city can help residents better their statutory private ways. The process is outlined, as many of you know, in Section 2180 through 2186 of the Gloucester Code of Ordinances. So I'm just going to quickly go over some high points. The total cost of the road repairs will be borne by the abutters. 2184 and 2185 are now combined into one section, for those of you who recall the last ordinance that we amended. It's now a new Section 2184, and it provides guidance to anyone wishing to avail themselves of this ordinance. The process starts with abutters submitting a petition to the clerk's office signed by not less than 75% of all abutting owners to the private way. The abutters must pay a fee with the petition of $1 per linear foot. This fee was added to the new ordinance to help defray some of the engineering costs, which in the last ordinance, you recall, were solely borne by the abutters, but now in the new ordinance are borne by DPW. The clerk then refers the petition to the mayor's office with a request for a feasibility determination. The mayor's office then refers the petition to the DPW for that feasibility determination, which shall include consulting with various city departments, police, fire, Concom, determining the parameters of the project and setting a price for the project. The DPW will then respond to the abutters with this information. The abutters then call and hold a meeting to vote on the project parameters and the project cost. And just to be clear, abutters are not required to avail themselves of this process. They are free to go out on statutory private ways and seek bids from other contractors. In fact, I think, and I'll speak for Mike on this, I think that we would encourage them to do so to get the lowest bid possible. 75% of all abutting owners must attend the meeting, and 66% of all abutting owners must vote in favor of the meeting. Vote in favor. There are no proxy votes in the new ordinance. The abutters submit a record of this meeting and its votes to the clerk's office, and the clerk provides a copy to the mayor's office. The mayor's office then may submit the petition and record to the city council for funding consideration. The mayor's office is not required to do so, but once they do so, the council then considers it for funding. If the petition and record are submitted to the city council, you hold a public hearing and vote on the funding. 2185 of the ordinance establishes a deadline of December 31st for submission to the clerk in order to be included in the next year's scheduled projects. If the city fails to complete the project in the year scheduled, the city will automatically finish it the following year and roll it over. If the abutters fail to secure the appropriate approvals, then they have to wait 2 years before they can resubmit. So that concludes my remarks. I'll let Mike say a few words, and then we could take any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you, Chip. And we'll hear from Mike first, and then we'll have questions from councilors.
Good evening, councilors.
So, Mike.
It's going to be, Chip and I, when we took on this task, there was a lot of information that was shared with us, so there might be some redundant things in my statement, so bear with me. I try to sort through them back at my desk. Because this is both a discussion on public and private roads, I just wanted to brief the council on how we maintain public roads. There are about 90 public road miles in the city of Gloucester, 40 statutory private road miles in the city of Gloucester, and 22 true private ways in the city of Gloucester. Of those 90 public road miles, we get about $650,000 in Chapter 90 money. And Chapter 90 money is the state money is allocated to cities and towns for the maintenance of public ways, and public ways only. It cannot be used in private ways. Since 2000, the city's received just under $11 million in Chapter 90 money. So it hasn't been $650,000 each year. If you go back when I first started, it was probably around $250,000, $300,000. In 2013, my office did a pavement management study of all ways in the city of Gloucester. The maintenance of all ways, just bringing them to a standard that was above a grade of a 70. So that's not perfect, that's somewhere above 2/3 complete, was $17 million. That price today is close to $17 million just for the public road miles. The price increases, the conditions of our roads continue to decrease. And we use every dollar we get annually to pave roads. Very rarely do we buy equipment with it, which is acceptable in the Chapter 90. Many towns buy equipment to maintain roads. We have bought some stuff in the past, the city certainly has, but this past few years has been all used on paving. The formula for Chapter 90 it's a three-pronged formula. Number of public road miles, accepted road miles, population, and population of employment within your city or town. Adding private roads to this formula, we don't get the bang that some people think you do. Many of these small private ways, if they were accepted as public, even in a good condition, would take 30 years to earn back enough to repave it again. 30 years, some much more than that. We looked at one recently, had like a 106-year payback. It's a long time to imagine the city's on the hook for paving that road for the next 5 cycles before it's earned enough of Chapter 90 funds. In the 20 years I've been with the Public Works Department, 10 as director, only once has someone come before the council to ask for a public authorization, a loan authorization, to pave public roads. It's all been through Chapter 90. That one time was in 2011. It was a reallocation of some old CSO funds that were transferred from the sewer fund to a general fund and spent to pave 3 roads. And those were Farrington Avenue, East Main Street, and Rocky Neck Avenue. They were in deplorable condition. We had significant damage to fire apparatus, traveling across those roads at high speed, and it was a priority of the administration at that time. So the question's often asked, what's the criteria for providing temporary service to private ways? The ordinance allows us to do temporary repairs on roads that don't need to be resurfaced. I think it'd be hard-pressed that many of the calls we get, when they tell us how bad their road is, we send an inspector out, we realize that pothole repair isn't enough to manage the condition of the way. And nor should pothole repair be the means by which those roads are maintained. It can't just be pothole after pothole after pothole repair to develop some sort of traveling surface that's adequate for the people who live on the way. It's not the city's responsibility to maintain the way. We provide temporary relief to potholes and potholes only. We don't provide other amenities. We don't provide culvert repair, drain repair, or upgrades to the way. Those are expenses that are prohibited for me to spend on private ways. As Chip mentioned at the very end of his presentation, that the abutters of private ways can certainly solicit pricing from paving vendors to do pothole repair or full service paving. It's really up to them. And frankly, I think it's probably the best way because you have full control of who you choose, how much you're willing to pay, and what you want done. You lose a little bit that if you try to go to the private public paving ordinance. I have probably 5 pages of questions that are asked of me. I'm going to try to hit the ones that Chip didn't hit, if that's okay, Councilor. I won't mention the specific road that it came from, but just imagine that, insert the road. If we agree on a betterment to repave our street, can this betterment be used as a tax credit or deduction? Those type of questions would be best served by your CPA or whoever prepares your taxes. The city does not discount your real estate taxes just because you received a paving betterment, if that's what the question was trying to get. Who's responsible if someone gets hurt in a private way? I'm not an attorney. That question may be best for Chip, but it's not the city. When a street color sign is changed, it used to be green, which typically represented a public way. I'd pay very little attention to the color of your street sign as a determination of whether it's public or private. We have gone through many different street sign colors over the years. We've had white, we've had blue, we've had green. Right now, we're going to an all-green sign with white lettering. If it's a public way, there'll be a city seal attached to it. Ward 4, Guy Avenue, 2 new street signs, maybe 3 new street signs on Guy Avenue. That is a split street. That is part public, part private. Trying to designate the section as public with the city seal, the part that's not, does not, for your example. Is there a citywide map showing the locations of all private roads? We have a GIS that's a planning tool. That's really all it's good for. It's a map that shows the proximity or what we believe to be public versus private. That's not the deciding factor. If someone wants to just view that for their own purposes, they can certainly stop by my office, city engineer's office, and we can run through those layers on the GIS. What is the conditions of these private roads? And I don't know where this resident came from, so I assume when they said these, they mean all of them. Many are in poor condition. There's no question about that. Since the 2013 inventory, not very many private roads have undertaken full paving projects, so I wouldn't suspect it's certainly in any better condition than in 2013. Can the city provide a rough approximation of conditions given weekly access by trash and recycling trucks and other city vehicles? I'm unsure what the intent of the question is, so I don't want to read into it. There's a lot of wear and tear on roads. We have our own trucks and cars that drive over them daily, UPS, FedEx, your oil truck, the gas truck. I mean, there's a number of reasons why roads fail. It's generally because how they were constructed or the age of them. Approximately how many potholes need to be filled before the start of winter season? I don't have an answer for that. Many communities have a winter private road inspection process. If you go down to the south shore of the Cape, certainly the southeast part of Massachusetts, and portions of Western Mass, Public Works sends an inspector out in August or September and has a checklist on private ways. Is vegetation cut clear enough off the edge of the road so the plows can get through without damaging the vegetation? Are there potholes greater than a specified depth? Most communities use 2 inches as their benchmark for too deep. Is it free of other obstructions, fences, plantings, mailboxes? And if these criteria are not met, the abutters get a notice, and they need to remedy those issues prior to the start of the winter season. Are there more substantial repairs or improvements needed? Many roads need further improvements needed, such as drainage. Many of the private roads don't have hard pipe drainage, or they can't have it due to the location of them, proximity to wetlands or other infrastructure to receive those stormwaters. Certainly one of my biggest challenges is coordinating with other public utilities, not necessarily water, sewer, gas, electric, and other communications. They may not be on the same schedule we are. I meet with them frequently and try to share capital planning with them, annual paving with them. I do it well in advance so they can prepare for it. But their capital planning is as difficult as ours. They don't have an endless supply of funding that they're willing to spend upgrading their infrastructure. It's very frustrating when I get through paving a street and National Grid Gas comes in and tells me they need to dig it up. They were just there. They forgot something, or they didn't think it needed it at that time. They opted not to replace the service under the railroad crossing on Maplewood Ave. At the time, they replaced everything else on Maplewood Ave. And wouldn't you know it, they needed to come dig it up. There are 2 locations on Washington Street by Whittemore Street that are marked out right now for the National Grid to come and dig up. One is directly across from a place they spent a month working. They chose not to do it. I can't compel them. I have no authority to compel them to make the repairs. All I can do is let them know what we're doing so they can make good decisions. The work stoppage this summer has caused a lot of controversy with National Grid. We haven't issued them permits for new services because they're so far behind in what they owe us for restoration. And we work very hard with them to make sure they restore the roads in good condition when they're done. What would the estimated cost for homeowners on each private road come to if they had to hire a private contractor? I think it's a very, very difficult question to answer. I think all these roads have to be taken case by case. Certainly the price of a private contractor repairing anyone's private roads is going to be a better price than the city can provide. Road maintenance is unlike other maintenance in the Commonwealth, where if we're hiring people to mow lawns, I don't have to pay them prevailing wage. It's considered a maintenance activity, which is exempt from prevailing wage. Road paving is not, even though it is, in fact, the same type of maintenance. It needs to be done on a schedule. It's just bigger equipment. So all road paving crews, sidewalk crews, truck drivers, backhoe operators, grader operators, roller operators, there's a schedule of prevailing wage that they have to earn, which is significantly higher than most private contractors earn in any given day. There's a presumption, they refer to it presumably, there's a larger efficiency in the city taking on these projects. I don't believe that's necessarily true. The city cannot take on 40 miles of road paving project in 1 year. That'd be a multi-year project if we were allowed to do it. I think the efficiency would be in individual projects versus a massive project like that. What is the history of city work on private roads? Many residents remember the city working on roads have been surprised by this new policy. When did this new approach take effect? The ordinance isn't new. The ordinance, I can find the ordinance dates back to at least 1980. State law is older than that. I think you take a look at what the city budget is for this type of activity. I have $30,000 allocated for fiscal 19 for road repair. $30,000. I would use that money in 1 week taking care of probably 3 mid-grade private roads right now, just in pothole repair alone. And that would be it. Any public road that we're obligated to take care of, we wouldn't be able to. There's a question about an inventory of private roads that was approved by the council in the 50s or 60s. Roads aren't approved by lists. Roads are approved, as Chip mentioned, the statutory process by which they're approved. So I don't know what that was. There could have been a culling of the records, and at that time the council or mayor's office wanted to have a better understanding of what was what. It's very possible. In the mid-2000s, after the development of Bennett Street, it was determined that that was in fact a public road, laid out well before Gloucester was even incorporated. It was laid out in the early 1700s. We weren't even a formal country at the point. You know, it was laid out by the selectmen of the town of Gloucester. We took a full year's Chapter 90 money and most of the second year's Chapter 90 money to put that road into a condition that it's in today. So I don't believe there's a list, except what is the process for additional lists of private roads to be accepted. There's a lot of factors that go into whether the city should accept the private way. Chip mentioned a number of them. One of the biggest is there funding available to do so? The Chapter 90 formula is a little backwards. I don't think by adding more it benefits the city. I think it actually hurts the city. I think it puts us on a much longer paving cycle. Right now, we're on schedule for once every 40 years. Life expectancy of pavement's about 15. It's upside down. It doesn't work. Private roads on deck for public consideration. I floated a list a number of years ago of roads that make sense. Some of them are roads that at some point some administration or council had missed the acceptance process. They were laid out by the city. Then there wasn't the vote taken. That needs to be done. Or the roads are completely on public land. Lanes Cove Road. It's not much of a road. It's a road listed. We own 100% of it. The abutters don't even touch the layout. Should be a public road. There are a number of fire lanes that act as roads in the city of Gloucester, laid out by the city of Gloucester. Those should be included in the public road miles. Public road paving, queue and timeline. I believe this question was germane to now. What do we have in the queue? We finished Middle Street this past spring. We have Duncan Street starting next week. Duncan Street was not Chapter 90 money. That was paid for through CDBG. And that is an ADA project. It's improving the ADA accessibility from Main Street to Rogers Street, the curb ramps. That's next week. And then Thatcher Road from Barn Lane to Witham Street is going to follow. That will include some pedestrian improvements as well. That's Chapter 90. And that's all the Chapter 90 money for the year. We do aggressively look at other places for paving monies. Complete Streets is another program through Mass DOT. We are a Complete Streets community. The mayor signed a compact with the Commonwealth a number of years ago. Very high bar to get over. We were declined 3 years running. We were accepted this year. There's a lot of criteria, that boxes you need to check off. We're looking at new sidewalks on Reynard Street, realigning the intersection of Reynard and Cherry and Poplar and Cherry. The reason that project was desirable because you have an elderly housing project at Cherry and Poplar, and you have a middle school and an elementary school within a certain zone to these areas. And I believe that's the third question that was asked there, current status for grants for Safe Walking to School program. A preliminary conversation including budget implications for fiscal 20. I certainly don't think a conversation is a bad place to start anything. I just don't know what the answer is going to be. I mean, we have a very difficult task ahead of us to maintain what we have the responsibility to maintain, our public obligation. It's very challenging. An open discussion about repairs of private ways with public access. I think this is specifically towards public landings. Just because there's a public landing or a public amenity on a private road doesn't make it any less private. Depends on who the landing is owned by, the amenity is owned by, they become party to the private way as well. I honestly talk about this every day. So I could go on for hours on this, but I think it's probably best in the heat just to ask some questions, or Chip can follow up. I'll be here.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Chip, did you have one more thing?
I wanted to add one thing Mike mentioned. There's one significant difference that I think it's important to understand between abutters of statutory private ways availing themselves of our ordinance as opposed to going out and hiring a contractor, and that is the fact that our ordinance requires a 75% approval but 100% pay. So where you have situations, I see Councilor Memhart nodding his head, he experienced this several times where you had some vocal minority who does not want to pay. In a private contractor situation, the surrounding abutting neighbors cannot require that person to pay, but availing themselves of the city betterment ordinance, we have a mechanism in there that requires 100% participation, as long as you hit the threshold of approval, that's all you need, and then everybody else is on the hook.
Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Yes, Councilor Gilman.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that we have about 40 copies of our ordinance that we're discussing in that pile there, as well as a sample of the petition and a tool list of how the petition works. So before you leave tonight, if you're here for that reason, please come up and take a copy. I think you'll find it helpful. Thank you, Councilor.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Gilman, for providing that. That's very helpful. So, thank you very much, Mike and Chip. That was great, and that was pretty comprehensive, too. I'm sure there are questions. And so, councilors, we'll start with Councilor Holmgren, and we'll just go around the table.
I have no questions at this time. I want to thank Chip and Mike for your thorough work and helping us understand this a bit better.
Thank you, Councilor Holmgren. Councilor Memhard?
Again, my thanks. This is clearly an important issue for a lot of residents, taxpayers, constituents in the city. I know that in Ward 1 we've had instances where people have paid privately to have their road rebuilt after careful discussion with the DPW. We've had roads that have gone through the betterment process, whether it's over on High Popples or now Starknot Heights, and we're currently involved in projects both on Southern Road and probably on Briar Neck. And it's a very complicated project for people to wrap their heads around. The one outstanding question that my ward has might relate to a road that would appear that it should have been public, but in fact is still legally private. It's a familiar one for all of us here, but a beach road is one that crops up, and how the city can approach that, where it's a clear thoroughfare. It's an old road, but it's in private ownership, and if there's some mechanism for addressing that in terms of its pavement.
Other than what we said, which is the statutory allowance of snow plowing or temporary repairs, if it is not taken as a public way, the abutters are responsible for its maintenance. There's no way around that. The courts have been pretty clear on it, and what you can and cannot spend taxpayer money on. So, you know, those, unless Mike has other thoughts, those, in my legal opinion, are the only things that can be done, is snow plowing and temporary repairs.
Thank you. Councilman Memhard, others?
Unless Mike can add to that, I know there's some legal issues in terms of ownership and doing the survey work necessary to clearly establish the parameters of the roadway.
The road you speak of is somewhat of a square peg in a round hole, where I can find the ownership of, I think, every way, if asked. Beach Road has been a little bit of a difficult one.
Yep.
But there is no council vote on record that's ever been accepted as public, so it's why we categorize it as private.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Memhard. Councilor Cox.
Mr. Hale, I do have a question. I know that you told us about the Chapter 90 formula on how we get money. Where does the state get the money that they put in that Chapter 90 bucket?
I believe it's a number of funds. It's a bill they float, a bond they float. I believe it's gas tax mostly. You know, tolls are dedicated to toll roads and the upkeep of those, but I believe it's mostly gas tax.
Not excise?
I'm not familiar with how they fund that. I know, you know, there's an argument every year about the fact that the legislature votes it annually versus over multiple years. I mean, I sit and wait every spring to see if we're going to get it.
Right.
Or how much we're going to get, or when. When's a very important thing for me, because if they don't release that money until midsummer, it's very difficult for me to get paving projects accomplished because we have such a short season here. It's a challenge.
I'm just trying to think outside the box and how we can increase our funding through them, and you know, I'll reach out to Senator Tarr and see if he can shed some light on that and maybe increase our ability to get money.
Yeah, I mean, just to answer that question, Mass Municipal floats a survey every other year to every public works director around. I'm the current president of Essex County Highway Association. So we get together monthly or bi-monthly to discuss issues like Chapter 90. Most communities say that they need another $1 million annually, and most communities don't get $1 million, but they need another $1 million annually to maintain their public obligation. Right. The private piece isn't discussed by very many public works directors, other than the fact it's a very difficult situation that a certain constituency in the community has. But just the public obligation requires almost twice as much as we already get to maintain it.
And how much does the city provide budget-wise for paving?
For full paving, nothing. We provide $30,000 budgetarily for pothole repair. Obviously, the water and sewer divisions carry a similar dollar amount for trench repair for their work. That's enterprise-driven. You wouldn't dig up a water service and pay for it with general funds. You'd pay for it through the enterprise fund. If we do a capital project, we try to include paving in our capital projects the best we can. And again, being mindful of water and sewer rates, driving those up too high, just for the benefit of paving and sidewalks.
If there is a private road that also has a school bus stop on or near the entrance to the road, is that something that you could improve if it's a hazard for a school bus stop?
Again, addressing all hazards in private roads is up to the abutters of the way. The question would be, I mean, there's probably lots of school bus stops on private ways in the city. There has to be.
Right.
I think they try to encourage, the students to walk to the nearest main road. If it was really unsafe and it couldn't be addressed, we just asked the Transportation Division to move the bus stop.
Okay.
Again, if it's on a main road, it shouldn't be hard to do, or near one. And most of these private ways are, branches off of the main arterials, which are all public. You're not going to find very many main arterial roads in the city that are not public.
Okay. I will forward you the address on that one. I just got that question this evening, so we'll address it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cox. Councilor O'Hara, you're next.
Thank you. I've got questions I think Mike probably be appropriate to answer. Pertaining to the private roads, obviously East Gloucester, Magnolia, West Gloucester are probably the worst. Some in Ward 4. Emergency vehicles, as far as, for instance, Inglewood Road, Lake Road, Maple Road, are in horrendous shape. The fire apparatus, the engine, they're designed overweight. Brake and axle, is there some directive that the city can give to the owners of the private road open to the public?
Sure. It's listed in the Code of Ordinances that the abutters of the ways are responsible to keep the roads safe for emergency vehicles. It's specifically to your point. It's in there. They are responsible to keep it safe for passage for emergency response vehicles.
Is there any enforcement of that? Who would be the responsible party to enforce that?
Probably a question for Chip. I don't know who the responsible party would be to force the abutter of a private way to take corrective action. The rescue squad is going to get there whether they break an axle or not. And I think the fire chief would tell you that. If there's a need for them to be there, they will be there. There's lots of private driveways. Well, all driveways are private, I guess, but that are in poor condition that they need to get up to get to the house. Again, when I first came on as director working with then Chief McKay, one of his biggest complaints was the streets that they need to go quickly on, the main arterials, the loop roads in the city, Washington Street, Eastern Avenue, Thatcher Road, Atlantic Street, Concord Street, Hesperus Avenue, Magnolia Avenue. That's where they lost the most time and did the most damage, because you're doing 35, 40 miles an hour on these roads and you hit a pothole. And as an engineer, I was in the same city hall talking about the same issue back in 2006, with a different director, about the fact that we needed to maintain our main arterials. Virtually all our main arterials today have been repaved.
Terrific, thank you. There have been, most recently, Councilor Memhard has had 2 meetings with the Southern Road neighbors, and I thank you and Chip for recommending that they go out and solicit bids, which they did. And their bids for Souther, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Council Memhard, the low was 67, the high was 134,000. Again, their own off-the-cuff specification. The city's estimate, I think, was 175 to 200,000. And that's related to Southern Road. Over in Magnolia, West Gloucester, similar meetings have taken place. Brooks Road was paved successfully. The neighbors, from what I'm hearing, are very happy. That was done through the betterment process. The one question that seems to be a common denominator, is there some way that the city can put these jobs out to public bid?
That's what the public-private paving ordinance is that they solicit the city to manage a project from conception to end. And whether I bid it as a specific project or I include it in my general bid, I bid every 3 years for paving services, so I have someone ready to go at all times. And the price is pretty standard within the industry, so we do that. If your question is, can I bid, I don't guess we don't know what your question is.
Well, the question is, of Southern Road, for instance, is a little shy of 0.4 of a mile. Obviously, the spread between 67, 134, and 175, 200,000. Can you take, and they seem to be favoring, most of the meetings seem to be favoring the betterment process because they can't control who pays. So they appear to be willing to pay the extra dollars to have the city go through the betterment process. But again, they ask the question, can the city bid the private road open for public usage, take that to a bidding process?
Again, I think that's just what the ordinance does. So we bid our paving, and the paving is done in units. And the units to pay from point A to point B, in my mind, don't change. It's X number of feet wide. You want to have your base and your top, and you have some, back of property adjustments that need to be made. I did review those bids, not review them. They were shared with me. They were from 80 to like 100. I think a little more than 104. I think it was 160, and we were at 171. I think the bids close to us incorporated everything that road was asking for. It was difficult for me to take a look at the very low price. They were off by a third in the tonnage needed from bid to bid. I don't know how they came up with the numbers. We would never take those estimates by 3 private paving companies. We can't do anything with them. I think what we do is just what you're asking. We bid out, whether we actually have a specific bid for that street or we include it in our overall paving bid, which is unit prices are bid competitively. And there's adjustments for the cost of asphalt yearly, because there has to be, there always is. There's an escalator and a de-escalator in asphalt. And if we had the benefit of a de-escalator, we get it. If we're not, we get the escalator.
Okay.
Maybe Chip understands your question better than I don't know.
I think, are you asking if he takes, for example, one road and bids that single road out? Is that what your question is?
That's what the abutters have asked.
And I think that you bid for a paving contractor, and then and that's every 3 years, and then based on that paving contractor, you then ask them for a price on that. So he doesn't bid out each specific road separately, correct?
Right. Sorry, this is confusing. Sorry, Dana. Yeah. The economy is having a paving contractor pre-bid because, again, it was competitively done. I can't just choose a vendor. We have to bid it competitively, publicly, and we bid kind of a menu of items: milling, reclaiming, full-depth reconstruction, overlay. We bid base asphalt, top asphalt, berm asphalt, sidewalk mix, concrete mix, raising, resetting of granite, furnishing new granite, reconstruction of structures, striping. So we put everything out with what we think we're going to spend over the course of a 3-year period. We get a very good price on it. I mean, we are moving at light speed compared to neighboring communities and getting roads done because we're ready to go at the beginning of every construction season.
So again, you put that out to bid for a 3-year window?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we just redid it. So we do Chapter 90, so that's one section, and then we do general paving. So I have 2 bids. I happen to have the same contractor right now for both, but it's rarely like that, and it goes back and forth between a few vendors.
Thank you. One last question. I think on Brooks Road, they had this scenario where the city has property or is an abutter on the private way, but the city does not put into the betterment process, or the kitty, if you will. And that was a question that was,
So I think Brooks
if
Road,
you will, upsetting to the other abutters on Brooks Road.
well, those abutters had the benefit of an easement across a city piece of land so they could build their home. So I think there was a little bit of give and take over the time of development for that. Other than that, they didn't have frontage. So again, you have to weigh what happens over the course of development, and some of these things take years and years to develop. They go back a long time ago. No easement, no house. Or they would have had to, at some point, improve their frontage off that way to gain traditional access to the property, which is probably the more common way. There are a number of cases where people have easement across city property, and if you are the beneficiary of that easement, you are responsible for the maintenance of that easement. So on the city, you need to drive over city land to get to your home. You're responsible for the maintenance of that piece of city land because you have an easement across it. Plowing, maintenance, whatever it may be, it's your responsibility, not the city's. Because if you weren't there, we wouldn't be doing it. Again, there are circumstances where we would be, and then it's a different story.
So in the private road open to the public, is there any participation by the city?
We haven't had very many petitions before us where the city was a major abutter. And I think the new ordinance allows for a reduction in the initial fee based on frontage. It allows some discretion on my part. And we're looking at that as, use Laurel Street as an example. The city has significant frontage on one side of Laurel Street. It would be unfair to expect all the other sparse abutters of that way to pick up the total cost. Again, this is just, it wasn't set for that street, but that's a street that comes to mind.
That's correct.
So you would reduce the initial cost. And again, we haven't come across a situation where the city would be a participating abutter. In that case, we are one abutter, just a very big abutter. And I think Scott's facing a situation where he has one very large abutter to the way, owns a major portion of the frontage.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you. I went through all my questions, and you've answered about 80%, so I do have just a few more, but thank you, Mike. So my first question is, explain once again why looking at your deed is so important and what that means to a property owner.
One of the questions was, do we have a map of private roads or a list of private roads? Maps and lists are subject to error. It's a clerical function. Someone's trying to compile lists from old files, new files. Everything was typewritten at once. Now it wasn't an old database. Now things are in new databases. The ownership of the way is always true in your deed. Or if it's misrepresented in your particular deed, you go back a few deeds and you'll see the ownership of the way. And generally speaking, we have people in my office daily for this. We print out their deed. We can point to where it says it. And again, there have been some measures taken on more modern deeds to kind of conserve ink, and they're much thinner than they used to be. You go back a few generations, when the property transferred, there's much more description, a better description of the land versus just referring it to the previous deed. If your deed ever references your right to the way, you know you live on a private road because you've been assigned a right. I live in Washington Street. My deed's silent about rights to Washington Street because I don't have a right to Washington Street. Everyone here has the same right as I do to that way. But you'll find it. And if you don't find it in your direct deed, you need to chase back maybe one, or two, it could even be 3 generations if the deeds are all kind of modern. But if anyone has a question on that, I have a number of staff that are trained to help people look for that. SalemDeeds.com. You can find your property in minutes. You can do it on your smartphone, you can do it on your iPad, you can do it on your laptop. It's easy.
Thank you. The next one's easy.
These are all easy.
Do you have an expectation of the timing for the Reynard safe walking grant execution of the work?
If in fact that contract is executable now, we've signed the paperwork, it's gone back and forth to the Commonwealth. If in fact they allow me to spend, we will spend this fall. We will get as much done as we possibly can do before the construction season ends. We are moving very quickly on our last 2 paving projects of the season, Duncan Street, Thatcher Road, to begin next week. Again, we're kind of handcuffed this time of year. It's very difficult. We've tried, and it was a complete failure to try to pave some major streets in the middle of the summer. I can't push it too much further than next week because I don't know what the weather's going to bring.
Next question. I've had many residents talk about the assessed value of their house. So if they live in a private way, why isn't their house assessed, or why don't they get a rebate or an abatement on their taxes because they are getting less city services? Can you just describe how an assessor assesses and why that doesn't come into play in terms of the amount of taxes a person is paying?
For the record, not the principal assessor, never have been. And the question on taxation is a very difficult thing to communicate to those being taxed. Everyone has their own opinion of what they should receive in services. Collectively, our property taxes go to the general fund. And property taxes are based on your assessed value of your real property, your land, and the condition of the buildings that sit on it. That's how assessments are done. It's based on your real property. And there are some other factors. It could be the view, but generally speaking, most communities just have, Massachusetts, I don't think they have a 95%, it might be 100% assessed value based on comps. Some states have different values on that. Sometimes they keep it a little bit lower than 90 to 100%. Regardless of where you live, if the tax structure is the same, one street here, same neighborhood, one on a public way, one on a private way, the taxes are just dependent on the condition of your home and your land. And collectively, those taxes are spent by the mayor's office at the approval of the city council on lots of services: police, fire, public health, public schools, public roads, all things we take advantage of at some point over the course of our daily lives. There are lots of people who pay into our taxes and they don't have children in schools. They don't have the benefit of the schools, other than good schools, better community. So again, it's not the public works director's role to kind of say you pay enough taxes or don't complain about your taxes, because I'm a taxpayer as well, and I can understand how people would feel they're not getting the services that they deserve. You had a constituent in your ward who was frustrated that we wouldn't pave his private way. He can't get the number of people in the street to contribute. There's not enough. One person opting out blows the deal away. Asked what is he getting for services. I'm like, you leave the Rotary and you drive home on a very good condition street for 5 miles before you turn onto 200 feet of subpar road. That's what you're getting for your taxes.
If a tree falls on a private road and is obstructing the road, can you describe what the process is in terms of the city's intervention?
We almost always clear safe passage on the road. I can't recall an instance where we haven't. Cleanup may be part of the question. And this is a little bit different than public-private roads, but there's a lot of questions on what makes a public shade tree. And everyone's tree is a public shade tree, according to them. A public shade tree, by statute, is a tree on public property, or a tree planted within 20 feet of the public property by the public with the permission of the landowner. That's a public tree. City Council President and I have been through this before, this discussion. So, people telling us it's a public shade tree, they may not understand what the difference is, but a public shade tree is just that. It's a tree on public land or planted by the public for the benefit of public shade on private property within 20 feet of the sideline with their permission. So if the tree is in the middle of someone's yard and it falls into the street, we're going to cut the top of it off, get it away, and And what stays on the private property is their responsibility. We're going to make it safe so you can get to your house, you can get your house, you can get to your house.
I'm almost done. Thank you, councilors. I've been really trying to figure out how we as a city can do a better job communicating to people about all this, because 90% of my issues in Ward 4 all are around this. And every time someone asks, I have to go through the whole explanation. I send them the ordinance. I give them all the information. I have a cheat sheet that we've made in the past. There's just so much work to be done. So I'm just throwing out, doesn't have to be discussed today, but somehow we need to think of a better way to communicate this whole package of information, make it available on the Public Works website, kind of the cheat sheet, the documents, just to make it easier for people to look at this stuff for themselves, because, you know, You've made this all really easy for me to understand, because I've driven you crazy in the last 3 years on all these things, but so many of my constituents really struggle with kind of a 101 understanding of this. So, you know, I guess I just throw that out to think about in terms of what we can do better as a city to help people to better understand how to navigate this whole issue of private versus public ways. And you don't need to answer today, but I'm eager to do something more. And if you want me to help, I'm happy to do so.
Just to partially answer your question, I mean, certainly the Code of Ordinances are available online. It's really easy to navigate. You can type in private way in the search bar of the Code of Ordinances, and it'll bring up the ordinance. And may bring up some other things that are germane to private ways as well, but certainly the ordinance will be one of them. A list of public-private ways is listed on the city engineer's website and has been for as long as we've had a website. Prior to having a website, it was on the front desk of engineering. It's on the front desk of Public Works. We're just holding this information. Again, it's difficult to kind of explain to every new home buyer, or I'm not sure even how we do that. I mean, I asked an attorney, a closing attorney, an attorney that does closings, has it ever spoken about? And they said, not really. But we're investing in probably one of the most expensive things that we will buy, and we don't know. It's 3 inches above your signature. It's the deed's a page long. You sign at the bottom of it, and no one reads what's in the middle, or knows what to read in the middle. And that's what the attorneys, you know, probably should be helping out perhaps with. Realtors, they come at us with lots and lots of questions. But unfortunately, sometimes with the same questions. And it doesn't change street to street. Statutory private way is a statutory private way. It's not because you live in Ward 4 or live in Ward 5 or live in Ward 1, they're the same. It's how the statutes were written, and that's how we manage our private ways.
Thank you for all of your answers and all the help that you continue to give me and the constituents in our ward. So
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gilman. Councilor Hecht, any questions from you?
Yes, I have two questions, Mike and Chip. Good job. First question is, given the fact that there's 90 miles of public road, and we get from 250,000 now 650,000 a year that you sit around and hope that it comes in every year.
Yes.
It's a long time even till public roads are going to be cycled through the process. So my question is, and Chip, you may have answered this earlier, but I just want to confirm, can public roads, if the owners, if 75% of the owners get together along a public road, can they accelerate the improvement process by signing up for a betterment? Is that something that, does it only apply to statutory private roads is, I guess, my question, or does it also apply to public roads?
No, it's the betterment process, they're two separate things. For public roads, I've read a couple court cases where the court talked about that abutters along public roads, I mean, they're free to petition the municipality to raise money to repave a public road, or ask the municipality to repave the public road. They don't go through the betterment process. That's a process set aside mostly for solely for statutory private ways where there's a repayment option. But it's up to the municipality and typically the Public Works Director as to whether or not they want to allow those abutters to do whatever it is those abutters are asking be done on repaving a public road.
To contribute funds, basically, is, to get
Yes,
together
I
and
mean,
come
you
up with the money.
The short answer is they need the municipality's permission in order to do that because the city basically owns the public road.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it would
so
be
if
through
people
the
want to
city.
do something along those lines, that'd be a conversation I would imagine that that the abutters would have with Mike and then probably with Jim as well at some point.
Great. Thank you. And then for the 40 miles of statutory private ways, the general feeling is that because of prevailing wage, if the city does the job as to a city specifications, then it can be more expensive than if the neighborhood goes and does their, gets their own bid and maybe does a lesser specification. So my question is, maybe Jim Destino may even be able to weigh in. Let's say in Jamie's case, you get a bid of $64,000 that the neighborhood wants to do it to their specification, and as much as $175,000-ish if the city would do it. Are there, in the case where the city does it, the neighborhood has the potential to finance it over 10 years, right? Is there anything available to the citizens has anyone's heard of that as private financing over a 5 or 10 year period? Have you ever heard of such a thing? That they could get both the lower bid and would be able to finance it over a period of time?
Not for something like this. I mean, the city's participated in a state revolving fund for septic loans, by which a person can apply based on income eligibility, age eligibility to the city to repair the septic system. And that's state money that we administer here. There's a lot of criteria. It's a lien on the house, same principles of betterment. I've never seen one for paving ways. And again, I don't know what the funding source would be. If you're asking the city to act as a bank,
No, not the city, but I mean, just knowing of, a lot of people there's 40 miles out there that want to get repaved, and the price is higher with the city doing it. And if people wanted to, I'm just seeing if
yeah, I
anyone
mean, frankly, I
else.
think the best answer would be if the neighborhood, again, depending on how big it is, if you were part of that neighborhood group and your portion was X, I mean, you'd either write a check, equity loan, bank loan, whatever it may be. And
Come in that direction.
And you'd be eligible to get your best bang for your buck, your best rate, your best terms. And maybe, some other person, they might not have the same rate as you. They might not have, their credit may be different. So it's difficult to say.
Thank
There is
you.
no bank that I'm aware of or
Right.
grant. And there's no grants for private ways. That was another one of the questions. I've never seen a grant for paving or private ways. Most grants are public.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Heck. Thank you, Mike, Chip. That was pretty exhaustive. I did say earlier, first of all, this is an information system, information session. This is not a public hearing. And if there are feelings that the current ordinance isn't right, isn't good, isn't fair, whatever, we're not going to be hearing that tonight. Tonight we will hear if anyone has a question about the technicalities that Mike and Chip spoke to. You can come up and ask the question. The chair will entertain the question. If it's something that we feel is something they need more time on, then we'll just note the question. Councilor Gilman was good enough to provide over on the table there the specific part of the ordinance and some of the forms that we use, and the cheat sheet too I saw on there, which is very helpful. And so help yourself to that. If there are no other, and always, of course, this is a complicated matter, and this is an ongoing matter, and if anyone has a question that didn't get answered or thinks of it on the way home or tomorrow, any of us, we're all in the book, will be glad to take the question and answer the question at any time beyond tonight. So we do have more business to get to, so if there's anybody who has a question that wasn't answered, that was not answered tonight. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
My name is Greg Figueredo, 20 New Way Lane, West Gloucester.
22 which lane?
20 New Way Lane?
New Way Lane.
New Way Lane. First of all, Chip and Mike.
Could you speak into the mic and speak to the council,
Sorry.
please?
Thank you for all the information tonight. I can tell you, I've been a resident my entire life, and it's things like this that get the information to us. The road I've been living on for 44 years, and up until just recently, I didn't even know it was a private way. Just so you know, when I bought it, maybe I was young and stupid, I never even looked at that. But anyway, I do have one question. What if a state road abuts you at a portion of that road?
What if the state did what?
A state road. A state road abuts your private road. Does that have any?
That's the state's responsibility, being on a state road. I think. If you can answer that quickly, Mike, without taking up too much time.
The state abuts the way only where the way intersects with the state layout of Route 133. They're not a parcel owner to it, so they wouldn't be party to, the betterment process.
Right.
Just like any private road that intersects with a public road, the city is not on the hook for that public road portion. I think it's the same situation that Mr. Figueroa just mentioned.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
And then the other question was, I asked you earlier tonight about the state, I didn't know it's called Chapter 90. If I could get a copy of that, I'm just requesting.
Well, Mike reported it was $600 and some odd thousand a year. So that question was answered.
Okay.
When you say a copy of it, I'm not sure what that means, but he told you how much we get.
Yeah, no, I heard the amount. I was just asking if I could get a copy of it, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Question that might
I'm on
not have been
Lake
answered.
Road and Englewood.
Which-
I have the
excuse-
question.
Name and address, please.
Paul Borgman, 37 Lake Road.
Yes, Mr.
Gloucester.
Bergman, I do want to remind you that you spoke at our last oral presentation. You did receive a letter responding to your
I
questions.
want to ask a question about that, please.
Go ahead.
In the case, I'm asking either Chip or Mike, in the case where we had an ambulance at our house for my sister, and we're told that because of the road's condition, in terms of public safety, she would not be able to receive an IV, is there any public ordinance or contingency clause in the law that would allow for a public safety issue where my sister's life was at risk? It turns out she was having a stroke, so she couldn't have the IV anyway. But we were told that they were not able to put an IV in her because of the road's conditions. Is there anything in the law or anything the city can do to address that issue?
So, well, go ahead, Chip, if you want. What I was going to say is that's a question that we would refer to the office of the mayor and have them answer for you, because that's a little bit of a complicated question that doesn't have to do with the maintenance of the road. That has to do with a public safety response. So we'll be glad
Can
to...
you answer the question?
We'll be glad to take that. It's certainly not a question from Mike Hale. We'll be glad to take that question and forward that to the mayor, and they will answer you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Robert Bliss, 9 Juniper Road.
Say again, right into the microphone, just like that.
Like that. Robert Bliss, 9 Juniper Road. I have a little joke here. Our roads they're the most public-private roads I've ever seen. We got, there's no signs, there's no gates, there's no guards. And people use our roads all day long for the landing and for the playground. So my other point is, and then I'll have a question, is it was said that the state, the definition of a public way is the public has a right to pass. Well, the public's passing over our roads on every day. So I don't know why we were designated a private road. It's ridiculous. That's number one. Maybe that was done in the 70s, and I don't know if it even applies anymore, but that's something you have to decide. The other thing was the state said, according to one of these gentlemen, that, if I heard him correctly, that the state sends the city money to pay for roads and private roads for minimal temporary repairs. Well, we don't have that. We're not getting temporary repairs. I'm making them. I got bags of asphalt that I'm working with. So that, we're paying, I guess my other speech is, we're paying the same taxes as everybody else, and we're paying the same state taxes as everybody else. So we're getting, I don't mean to be mean here, it sounds like we're getting a little short shrift by not, if the state says that you're supposed to fix, temporarily fixes on private roads, then we should be getting that. So that's simple.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, anybody else? You don't have to volunteer. Happy to volunteer. No. Because I was going to get on to the next business.
As I said before, and I know Mike has a quick answer to the second part of that, but there is no designation of private roads making them public. The law doesn't operate that way. In order for a government, for a public body to take a piece of property, there has to be an affirmative action. In my opinion, over the course of the incorporation and the existence of this city, there have been various takings of private roads and making them public. They didn't all start as public and then get converted over to private. They all started as private, and as the city moved along, to Mike's point, they were slowly taken and made public by affirmative votes of the governing body.
Thank you, Chip. Benediction, Mike?
Just to be clear on funding, we fund locally, only locally, general fund taxes, pothole repair. There is no state money that comes for pothole repair. Twice in my 20 years, they have issued some winter relief money, which is cutely dubbed by the Globe pothole money. Same rules apply. Can only be spent on public roads.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Clerk, next order of business. If you have a question about the technicalities that we heard tonight, yes. And name and address, please.
Rose Ferrara, 32 Lake Road.
Right in the microphone, please.
Rose Ferrara, 32 Lake Road. My question is, our road needs to be repaved. It's beyond repair and horrible. It's obviously not going to happen next week. What can we do in the meantime?
Thank you for your question. That question was answered earlier. The question was that the residents can get together and hire a contractor and repair the potholes. That's the answer. You get together with your neighbors and you hire a contractor and repair the potholes. Thank you. Okay, next order of business, Madam. I don't see one. This is going to be a question, not an argument about Lake Road, please.
Sal Ferrara, 32 Lake Road. I believe you had said that we would assume liability if we hired a contractor to repair these private roads. So if we repair this private road and someone walks down the street and gets injured on this private road, do we assume the liability for that repair?
So that's an issue for your own attorney. Thank you very much. Really, that's legal advice for the property owner. Anybody else? Okay, next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is the consent agenda.
Okay, the consent agenda, are there any councilors who wish to pull any matter off the consent agenda? Councilor Gilman?
Thank you, Councilor. I'd like to ask that we remove Councilor Orders number 3, which is 2018-35, Gilman Cox. And I'd also like to remove the approval of the minutes from the previous council and standing committee meetings, P&D of August 22nd, 2018. Any
others? Okay, with those removals, a motion to accept the consent agenda? So moved. Second? Moved and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Councilor Gilman?
So the first order that I just wanted to mention is Councilor Cox and I have asked that we amend the February 28, 2017 City Council Rules of Procedure by adding Rule 17 regarding a City Council civility resolution review and approval will be placed on the City Council meeting agenda during the month of January at the beginning of a new term of office. So I just wanted to mention that because that's a procedural interpretation of the civility resolution which we've decided to continue. So there's really nothing that we need to discuss, but I just wanted to mention that is a new order that is in the queue with a procedural interpretation of the civility resolution. So I'd like to move that we accept that for the consent agenda.
Sure, and then that would go to O&A.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next.
Thank you, Counselor. And the second is we had two very small amendments to the P&D committee meetings of August 22nd. I move to amend page 8 of 9 in condition 12, a performance surety bond for repairs to Stage 4 Park, second paragraph, by striking 2017 and adding 2018, and in the third paragraph, striking May 11th, 2018, and adding May 15th, 2019.
So those are just typographicals?
That is correct.
Me. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think we'll move on. Madam Clerk, next order.
Budget and Finance Standing Committee of August 23rd.
Councilor Cox, over to you.
I only have 12. Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend the City Council accept under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, a state grant from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, a FY19 State 911 Department Support and Incentive Grant in the amount of $86,795. The grant period is from July 20th, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Any comment?
No.
Nope. That's just a simple majority. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh. Next.
Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council accept under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, a Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Department of Homeland Security, DHS, a fiscal 2017 Assistance to Firefighters Grant, AFG, in the amount of $321,819. The purpose of this grant is to fund replacement of the oldest fire department ambulance with a 10% local match funded by the City of Gloucester, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments?
This is a FEMA grant that our awesome fire department sought and was awarded. It does have a 10% match, and I think the city would be more than happy to cover 10% versus 100%. I would like the gentleman in the audience that helped write the grant, Jamie, to stand up, and we should all just really bow to him right now because he just saved us $321,000. For the record, Drew was here earlier, but I believe he died of heat stroke, so my story was way better.
Thank you very much. What a great help
Thank
to
you,
the
Jamie.
city. Okay, is it moved and seconded? Good. All those
Sure.
in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Great work.
Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council approve the following supplemental appropriation 2019 SA1 for $32,181 from account as noted Capital Project Stabilization Fund under designated fund balance to account as noted Capital Project Stabilization Fund Fire Department ambulance vehicles for the purpose of funding a 10% local match for the Federal Emergency Management Agency Department of Homeland Security FY 2017 Assistance to Firefighters Grant for the purpose of funding a fire department ambulance. And I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I guess this is the 10%.
This is the 10%. Next time you do a grant, can you find some with a little bit longer acronyms, please? Just because, you know.
Okay, that's an expenditure, that's a roll call vote, so Madam Clerk?
Yeah.
It was moved and seconded.
Counselor Lundberg,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Absolutely.
Counselor O'Hara. Yes. Counselor Cox,
Yes.
Counselor Gilman.
Yes.
Counselor Heck,
Yes.
Counselor Holgram. Yes. The supplemental appropriation 2019 SA1 in the amount of $32,181 passes on a council vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Great, thank you. Councilor Cox?
Let's see. Budget and Finance recommend that the City Council voted unanimously to recommend the City Council accept under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, from the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries in FY18 Great Marsh Green Crab Trapping Program Grant in the amount of $10,000 for the purpose of funding a program to capture and remove European green crabs from the coastal marine and estuary waters within the Great Marsh ecosystem to improve shellfish, eelgrass, and other fishery resources within the city's jurisdiction. The grant period is from July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, and I so
Second.
move.
Moved and seconded. Do you want to try and explain this one?
Nothing against green crab, but
No, we hate them, actually.
Okay,
So, yes, it's an annual grant.
okay.
Do you-
This is a grant,
Yes.
so this is just a simple majority. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend the City Council accept under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A and a half, the donation by Harbor Cove Dental of 200 cloth grocery bags with a monetary value of $100 for the purpose of distribution to Gloucester senior citizens and low-income residents to aid in the transition from single-use plastic checkout bags through the Clean City Commission, and I so move.
second.
Moved and seconded. Sounds
This is just a donation
Right.
from a local company to,
great. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next.
Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64, approve payment of a prior year invoice for services rendered by Ready Refresh by Nestle, Louisville, Kentucky, invoice number as noted, dated July 2nd, 2018, for services and goods rendered in FY18, paid with FY19 General Fund Community Development budgeted funds for a total of $12.87, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. That's just a simple majority. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Budget
Next.
and Finance voted unanimously to recommend the City Council, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64, approve payment for services rendered by QuickBase, a software platform service provider. Quote number 10958, dated July 20th, 2018, for services provided from March 27th, 2018 through June 30th, 2018, and paid with FY19 General Fund Information Technologies Department budgeted funds for a total of $3,156.16. And I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anything to say about that?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next.
Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council accept under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, a state grant from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Office of Coastal Zone Management, a coastal resilience grant of $63,345 for the purpose of better addressing and protecting the Gloucester High School campus from future flooding risk and hazards. The grant match is 25% of the total project cost on a reimbursement basis. The grant period is through June 30th, 2019, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
The city's been awarded a coastal resilience grant administered through the Mass Office of Coastal Zone Management, CZM, with a 25% match. A supplemental appropriation is following with in-kind services. There is a proposal from GZA to start the design and permit work for raising the seawall along the Annisquam River Canal from Dunfudgeon Landing towards Western Avenue. There's a low point in the middle where the water breaches first, and once there is water incursion, the water can't flow back easily as the field is at a lower level. The high school property won't flood in a 100-year event in scenarios the government has laid out. They can, as Public Works Director Mike Hale conveyed. So basically, this grant will get us from now to the design phase and out to bid. And they have assured me that in that short order of time, they will have that completed. So.
Excellent. Good idea. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oh, thank you. Councilor Cox?
So this next item did not come through the mayor's report, so we took it up at Budget and Finance due to the match on this grant. We wanted to make sure that we had it all wrapped up all together. So we voted at Budget and Finance to go ahead and
Thank you.
move forward. Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2019 SA4 in the amount of $20,000 from account as noted Capital Project Stabilization Fund undesignated fund balance to account as noted Capital Project Stabilization Fund 2019 Coastal Resilience Grant for the purpose of funding a 25% local match by the City of Gloucester, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
So this is the match to
Yep.
the grant. It's $20,000.
Okay.
Roll call.
Okay, it's a roll call vote.
Councilor Lundberg.
Yes.
Councilor Memhard.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor Cox.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman. Yes. Councilor Heck. Yes. Councilor Holgram. Yes. The motion for supplemental appropriation 2019 SA4 in the amount of $20,000 passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Thank you. Next.
Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64, approve payment for the City of Gloucester's unemployment insurance by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, Department of Unemployment Assistance, Boston, a software platform service provider, EAN number 78303-680, dated June 12, 2018 and July 10, 2018, for unemployment claims of May and June of 2018 to be paid with monies from the FY19 General Fund budget for a total of $10,811, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay.
Just a prior
Yeah,
year
just a
bill
prior-
that didn't
do
get
we need
encumbered.
Is that a roll call? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next.
Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council approve supplemental appropriation 2019 SA2 in the amount of $23,780 from the Stabilization Fund transfer to General Fund account as noted to Mayor's Office Purchase of Services account as noted for the purpose of funding the Assessment Center to review and make recommendations for a new police chief, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
So this is to fund the assessment center as laid out in the ordinance that we recently passed in our search for a new police chief, as our police chief is retiring in December.
Right. Okay, that's a roll call.
Councilor Lundberg.
Yes.
Councilor Memhard.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor Cox.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman.
Yes.
Councilor Heck.
Yes.
Councilor Holgram.
Yes.
Supplemental appropriation 2019 SA2 in the amount of $23,780 passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Okay, and I think last one, Councilor Cox.
Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council approve 2019 SA3 for $91,930 from account as noted Capital Project Stabilization Fund, undesignated fund balance, to account as noted Capital Project Stabilization Fund, Magnolia Pier Reconstruction Project Site Improvements for the purpose of funding a contract for survey, geotechnical investigation, design, engineering, and permitting services for the reconstruction of the Magnolia Pier. And I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I think we're all familiar with the project.
Yep.
And this-
Initial estimates are between $660,000 and $820,000 to rebuild. It is a goal for the Magnolia Pier Committee to raise half of the amount needed.
Okay. So this is for the engineering.
Engineer, permitting, design,
Yes, right.
Roll call.
all that good stuff.
Roll call, please.
Roll call.
Counselor Lundberg.
Yes.
Counselor Memhard.
Yes.
Counselor O'Hara.
Yes.
Counselor Cox.
Yes.
Counselor Gilman.
Yes.
Counselor Heck. Yes. Counselor Holbrook. Supplemental appropriation 2019 SA3 in the amount of $91,930 passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Ordinance and Administration Standing Committee report of August 20th.
We have nothing under this heading. We have one public hearing.
Next item is Plan and Development Standing Committee report of August 22nd.
There are no matters for council action from this P&D meeting.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next order.
Scheduled public hearings, public hearing 2018-031, draft marijuana establishments ordinance to replace existing Gloucester zoning ordinance section 5.27, medical marijuana treatment centers and medical marijuana cultivation facilities with the new section 5.27 marijuana establishment ordinance, and amend section 2.3 use tables, section 2.3.2 community service uses, and delete section 5.31 temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments.
So I'll open the public hearing and just report that the P&D continues its very fine work, and you're getting close, I think. Okay. So it's continued till September 11th. Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Public hearing 2018-048, special council permit 2018-002, Prospect Street, number 93, map 13, lot 43, to convert an existing 4-family dwelling into a 5-family dwelling pursuant to Gloucester zoning ordinance, section 1.8 and section 2.3.1, parentheses 7, conversion to or new multifamily or apartment dwelling 4 to 6 units in the R5 district.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing and ask for those who wish to speak in favor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilors, I'm Catherine Schlichty. I'm an attorney in Gloucester with offices at 14 Pleasant Street. I'm here tonight representing Action Inc., who is seeking a special permit to convert their existing 4-unit dwelling into a 5-unit dwelling. This property is on the corner of Prospect Street and Chestnut Street. It, as you can see from the photos, is a 3-story building. There are 2 units on the first floor and 2 units on the second floor. Each of those units are between 600 and 700 square feet. The Action is going through extensive renovation in the property, redoing bathrooms and kitchens and floors. And while they're at it, they would like to add an 11-foot dormer to raise the roof on the 3rd floor so they can create a 370 square foot dwelling unit up there. This has gone before the zoning board, and they've granted all the dimensional relief for the unit. We're here tonight seeking a use permit for the 5 units. So, as you're all familiar, you must consider the 6 factors when considering a special permit. So I'm just going to go through those quickly for you. The social, economic, or community needs served by the proposal. So this is going to be another affordable unit on the market. it's part of Action's mission to provide housing for residents of Gloucester at low cost, so this would help them as well in their mission. And the traffic flow and safety, it's a very busy street, Prospect Street. There is no parking on this piece of property. It's not possible to put parking on the property. The building's at the front of the lot on Prospect Street, and as it goes down Chestnut Street, it's a deep slope and a big granite retaining wall, so they can't put parking in the back. Their experience has been with these small units that most of their residents in these small units do not have cars. None of the existing residents in this unit have any cars. It's likely that the person taking the 350 square foot unit will not have a car. However, it is close to transportation, it's downtown, so it's really ideally suitable for someone who doesn't need a car and doesn't have to carry the expense of a car. Adequacy of utilities and other public services. There's adequate utilities and public services in Prospect Street too. It's not much to create the fifth unit. The neighborhood character and social structure, as you are all familiar, this downtown neighborhood has a lot of multifamilies. There's an 11-unit directly across on Chestnut Street. There's 2 4 and 5 units across the street on Prospect Street. There's a lot of multi-units in this neighborhood, so it is in keeping with the character and social structure of the neighborhood. Qualities of the natural environment, it's a downtown urban landscape, but they will be doing some landscaping, adding a little bit more greenery to this piece of property. And the potential fiscal impact is really going to be probably negligible. I don't think it would, it's certainly not going to require any services from the city, and it won't generate any real estate taxes for the city. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll get to questions later. Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone speak in opposition? Any communications, Madam Clerk?
There are none.
No communications. Any councilor questions as to the technicalities of this proposal? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and call for the committee report.
Thank you, Counselor. Planning and Development Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council grant a special council permit SCP 2018-002 to Action Inc. for a property at Prospect Street, number 93, map 13, lot 43, zoned R5, to add a 5th dwelling unit in an existing 4-dwelling unit building under GZO section 1.8, 1.8.3 and 2.3.1 section 7 pursuant to an unsigned plan submitted to the city clerk July 12, 2018 with the application rendered by Seats Architects, Arlington, Mass. A1.3, Example 1.1, Example 1.2, and Example 1.3, contingent upon receipt of a signed stamp plan set by the architect from Seats Architects, and I so move.
Moved and seconded.
Counselor, I would like
Councilor
to...
Gilman? Yes.
I would like to make an amendment to the main motion to reflect the newly submitted architect stamped plans as follows.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to amend the main motion by striking all language after 1.8.3 and 2.3.1, section 7, and add the following language. Pursuant to a plan set entitled 93 Prospect Street, Gloucester, Mass., 3rd floor renovations in dormer addition rendered by Seats Architects, signed by Patricia A. Seats, registered architect, and dated 7/8/18, and I so move.
Good, moved and seconded. So if there are any questions, it's just that they've now submitted the complete set. Okay, so we have a motion. It's been moved and seconded to amend. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And return to the main motion.
So in terms of just a brief discussion, I think Attorney Schlichty certainly covered the majority of the issues that I'd like to state, but I would like to mention that this proposal adds a fifth dwelling unit to Action Inc.'s housing property, and it will help the city move forward in creating more affordable housing. Additionally, the special council permit application meets the standard of GZO 1.8.3 and is in harmony with the city's zoning ordinance. So I hope councilors join me in supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd just like to mention that I will be supporting this and to thank Action. We appreciate Action, the part of their mission to be a good partner with the city and housing, and this is another piece of that, so thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Holmgren?
Yes, I would like to echo what's been said. I thank Ms. Schlichty for presenting all of these things, and I'd like to thank Action for, again, coming up with a creative solution to a challenging problem we face in this city. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, thumbs up here. Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilor Lundberg.
Yes.
Councilor Memhard.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor Cox. Yes. Councilor Gilman.
Yes.
Councilor Heck.
Yes.
Councilor Holgram. Motion, City Council motion to grant a special City Council permit to Action Inc. for Prospect Street, number 93, pursuant to Gloucester zoning ordinance, section 1.8 and 2.3.17, passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Great, congratulations, and thank you very much for bringing this to us.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say as an aside, after my conversation with Mike Hale, I have been notifying my clients when they're on a private road, but I'm going to add that to my...
Very good, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Next order of business is public hearing 2018-049 to amend Gloucester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Section 22-270, Parking Prohibited at All Times, and amend Gloucester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Section 22-291, Tollway Zones by adding Pleasant Street westerly side beginning at a point 130 feet from its intersection with Warren Street in a northerly direction for a distance of 25 feet.
I will open the public hearing and ask if anyone wishes to speak in favor. Anyone to wish to speak in opposition? Any communications?
There are none.
Any councilor questions, technicalities of this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for the committee report. Councilor O'Hara.
Start over again. On a motion by Councilor O'Hara, seconded by Councilor Nolan, the Ordinance Administration Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council amend GCO Chapter 22, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Section 22-270, Parking Prohibited at All Times by adding Pleasant Street westerly side beginning at a point 130 feet from its intersection with Warren Street in a northerly direction for a distance of 25 feet, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments?
Yes, the parking space proposed to be eliminated is in front of the Carroll Steele Insurance Agency on Pleasant Street that is currently narrowing the roadway, creating a traffic bottleneck. This proposed action will open up this area of Pleasant Street for a safer traffic flow.
Thank you. Councilor Hecht.
Thank you. By removing this one parking spot, we're going to change the pinch point from 14 feet between cars to 19 feet. So just north of this, it's 19 feet. This is down to 14. It's a pure cone, and Carroll Steele's in favor of this. In fact, during the ward meeting that I had in April, many people were like, just eliminate all the parking on Pleasant, and we're like, we're not going to do that. So anyway, this makes a lot of sense. Basically, it's generally supported, and it can really help our traffic flow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hecht. Anybody else? Councilor Memhard.
I just want to say that I stopped and waited for an oncoming car at this precise place earlier this morning, and I'm very much in favor of this motion being accepted.
Councilor Gilman, you too?
I echo that. and frequently, there have been times where I've actually put in my side mirrors when I'm going through there because I'm anticipating someone's going to hit me. So I think that this is a great idea, and I'm really going to support this, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is a roll call? No roll call. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Next, Councilor O'Hara.
On a motion by Councilor O'Hara, seconded by Councilor Nolan, the Ordinance and Administration Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed to recommend that the City Council amend GCO Chapter 22, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Section 22-291, Tollway Zones by adding Pleasant Street westerly side beginning at a point 130 feet from its intersection with Warren Street in a northerly direction for a distance of 25 feet, and I so move.
Moved and second. Okay, same deal. Just okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Next order of business is for council vote, the City Council Civility Resolution.
And we have continued that until September 11th. So next order of business
Is the update of the Tourism Commission by City Council Representative, Councilor Ken Heck.
Councilor Hecht.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming, and we are almost there to restart the Tourism Commission. There's really 5 entities that relate to tourism in the city. There's the Chamber of Commerce, there's Discover Gloucester, there's the Tourism Commission, there's the DDC, and there is Joe Cellino's Retail Association. And what I did is I took a long time to study and meet with each of these entities and with the administration to figure out how the structure would be going forward. The structure is going to be what it is today going forward, and it's time to rebuild the Tourism Commission. So I called a meeting at the Chamber among the Tourism Commission members who I contacted, and unfortunately I'm not the person that's supposed to call a meeting, so Jill Cahill is now back on vacation, and she's going to call the meeting this week, and we will get that going quickly. There's 4 members that still remain, possibly 5, I'm not sure, and our key goal at the first meeting is to have the members of the Tourism Commission select the chairperson, and so that we can begin firing it up and doing business again.
Thank you, and I would like to commend Councilor Hecht for stepping into this sometimes hornet's nest, because there are so many interests, and everybody's got their own opinion about the right way to do it, but you went and did, it wasn't just sitting there, so thank you for doing that, and we'll get it right, and we'll make the tourism better, but thanks for doing it. Okay, Madam Clerk, next order.
Request to the mayor.
Okay, we'll start with Councilor Hecht.
In terms of what's happening toward these types of ends we just discussed, I met with Mickey Northcutt in Salem yesterday about their murals program, which was very interesting, and I'm working on bringing a murals program to Gloucester. Particularly, I see it as a use to connect Roger Street to Main Street through our alleys by Diva, which has the netting painted, through Porter Street, and et cetera. So I'll be doing an inventory of walls this can be a private project. It won't be subject to the Gloucester Committee for the Arts for approval. This is all on private land, privately funded, and that initiative is going to be started probably on our building and also the building that houses Diva on Main Street, and then others that might have an interest. That's one of the key elements that we've been working on this week. We're going to be talking with Karen Ristabin, who many of you know, who's with Essex County, now 34 communities with the arts and applying for grants and really getting a move on. Also walked Main Street with Mike Hale for a couple of hours a week ago and really came up with a very detailed do list of how we can improve Main Street and Tally's Corner. So we're also working on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gilman.
Parade of Sales this weekend, Sunday at 10:30. Really excited about it. Hopefully, for those of you who are going to go out by water, remember that they can get out to the outer harbor very quickly, so you need to be there on time. And if there's any way that we can get more fans in this auditorium for future meetings, I've never been so uncomfortably hot in my whole life. So I don't know if that's possible, but this is really, really hot.
Sticky.
It is. But, so anyway, thank you. But Joanne, thank you for this. And I do have one more thing.
Yes?
Can I ask you to just mention that we still need some poll workers? Because I think maybe we could all help you, but I left the clerk's office at about 2, and there was still a need for 3 or 4.
Okay, so we are all set for this election. The election is Tuesday, the primary. Please get out and vote. Okay, September 4th. And right now, we're all set for poll workers, but we'll have the snowbirds leaving, so we will need some poll workers for November 6th election. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilor O'Hara.
Thank you to Mike Hale and Chip Payson for their explanation on the private roads. That was extremely helpful. Also just want to remind people on the Red Cross is having a blood drive, which is so important to the survival of many, many people. Monday, September 24th from 2 to 7 o'clock at the Magnolia Library. And you can call 1-800-RED Cross to make an appointment, which is highly and strongly recommended. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Holmgren.
Yes, I was going to also mention the election, the primary coming up on Tuesday. Please, please, please vote. Our turnout in primaries has the potential to be amazing if we let it. There are 14 different slots open and being contested in some cases not. And that doesn't even include the ballot questions that are coming up in November. So thank you very much. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And thanks to the City Clerk's office for all the work they always do on this. I also want to just remind people that the next City of Gloucester Animal Advisory Committee meeting is on September 12th. That's a Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. in the first floor meeting room of City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Memhard.
I also would like to join my fellow councilors in thanking Mike Hale, our DPW director, and Chip Payson, the city general counsel, and their work with the mayor's office, Jim Destino, on this private-public roadway issue. I thought that their presentation this evening was extremely helpful, very professional, very clear, and it's a frustration to our constituents to deal with. It doesn't seem fair and equitable, but I think that we're making progress in terms of laying the groundwork around communicating these issues and working together to try and explain to our constituents and our taxpayers what they need to do. But it is a very complicated issue, and I thought that our city's employees, our professionals, did an extraordinary clear job in presenting. The good news that I heard tonight was specifically that now Middle Street is paved, and that the next 2 steps that they've identified will be paved are Duncan Street and the Thatcher Road between Barn Lane and Witham Street. And those are going to be major improvements for all of us in the city. I would like to join everyone in a welcome for Labor Day. We're going to end the summer with a heat wave just like we began it on July 4th. So stay cool and enjoy, I hope, some fireworks. We'll find out. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilor Cox.
I hope everybody has a fun and safe Labor Day. Maritime Gloucester hosts a awesome Heritage Day event down at Harbor Loop. So they will be blocking off the road, and there will be vendors set up and tons of activities for children, and get up close and personal with some of the boats. Vote. Don't vote often, just vote once. And I think that's it.
Great, thank you. And I would just like to commend the activities over the Labor Day weekend regarding the Schooner Festival, and to thank the Maritime Center for taking the lead role again this year, thanking the Beauport Hotel Hospitality Group for stepping up as a sponsor, and all the other people who work to make this an exceptional event. So hope everyone can get the chance to see some sails and maybe some fireworks if citizens are generous. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.